Hey, I'm Alex Radical from Board Game Co, and today I'm reviewing Sweet Mess from Pika Games. Sweet Mess is a recipe building game for 1 to 4 players in which players are trying to go ahead and construct a variety of recipes, trying to get as many points as possible while also trying to cash in on awards, and once a player has 3 awards, game end will be triggered and you'll see who scored most efficiently. Which doesn't really tell you much about how to play the game. But the core turn structure in the game, every single turn what you're going to be doing is you're going to be going ahead and taking ingredients from some of these bowls over here. But you're specifically taking ingredients from these bowls, trying to make sure that you actually can take them, which starts off easy, but gets a little harder. And let's just walk through a few turns, you'll get a sense of how a turn plays out. On your turn, you're going to go ahead and move one of your markers. You're going to move, well, your marker, not one of your markers. You'll move your marker, and then you'll take either side of that action. If you pay a coin, you can take both, but you don't start with a coin, so you're going to take a little bit of time to get there. So right now, I'm just going to move here, and I'll take all the ingredients from one bowl. In this case, let's say I'm trying to build this recipe over here. So I'll go ahead and take the 2 chocolate ingredients. I'll take these ones specifically over here. I'll put these, and I can either put them into this compartment over here, which needs all 4 ingredients the same, or this compartment here, which needs all 4 different, which inherently can't be the case since they're both the same, or I can put it over here where you could have 2 different ingredients, 2 of one and 2 of another. So you're trying to be mindful of how you place them over here, and that's going to be a restriction. We'll then flip this over here. Well, first we're going to go ahead and spread chocolate. So we're going to spread chocolate to all the neighboring areas. So we're going to go ahead, one there, one there, one there, not there, I don't know why I put there, over here, and we're going to go ahead and put down some chocolate over here, and then we're going to go ahead and flip this ingredient like so, and now we have the other bowl on that side. That's going to go ahead and start populating the bowls with other ingredients. Someone else will go ahead and say that they want to take this bowl over here, which means we're going to start adding this the candy ingredient to the other neighboring bowls, and then again flip the candy ingredient as well. So we go ahead and flip that like so. So now we're flipping that, and that's an empty bowl which can now be populated. Back to my turn, and you can see if I wanted this, which I don't really. I kind of want to get my hands on this over here, but I do possibly want to pivot. So for example, I could do this one over here, which is not the craziest, because I could use the 2 chocolate towards that. You know what? Let's go ahead and do this one over here. So we're going to take these over here. The problem is, where do we put these? And the short answer is we can't take everything, which makes me think I don't actually want to take this bowl over here. You see, the problem is, over here, these are all the same. You can only put them into one column at a time. I can't put these in this column because this red is different. I can't put them into the same one because that purple is different. And I can't put them here because I already have the black settled over there. So I wouldn't be able to take everything. So you know what? I'm actually not going to take from that column. And instead, I'm going to go over here and take from this column because I can dump those there. Then put some red down the neighboring columns. You can see over here, we're creating messes as we go effectively in this game. You're just slowly populating different areas, and messes are being created as you go. Flip that over. And so we're slowly populating different areas of the board with more and more ingredients. You're going to have that cross-contamination or cross-pollination, as it were, across the course of the board as you start flipping things over and trying to take stuff. Now you're trying to do all this. Again, you're moving your token from place to place. These areas over here, this lets you take from one container over here. This lets you take from a container. This lets you take a tool from the tool cards over here. This one over here lets you go ahead and advance time, and advancing time is a concept we'll come back to. Over here you can take from one of these sideboards, and over here you can go ahead and start building recipes. Now we're not going to get into all the nitty-gritties of all the things. There's things like reserving recipes. We won't talk about everything, but basically what you're trying to do is you're trying to collect ingredients so that ultimately you can go ahead and take an action where you start building recipes based on the ingredients you have. You can sit there and say, oh, you know what? I think I want to build this ingredient. I just need 1 more of these. Let's pretend I have it for simplicity's sake. Look at that. I can go ahead and build this recipe. I can trade in 2 of the red, 2 black for these 2 which have to be equal, but doesn't specify what it has to be, and this over here, and I can build this recipe card, which is going to give me a few things once it is actually done. You see, you don't actually build things right away. What you're going to do in this game is you're going to take this and you're going to put it into one of the queues on the bottom of your board. You have a few different queues, each giving you different rewards. But you're going to put that in the queue, and then slowly at the end of each round is going to move one closer to the end where it'll finally be produced, and you'll actually get both the points on the card, as well as the fact that you'll get the reward over here, which is a coin, as well as the fact that you're going to get that symbol which counts towards the various awards you're trying to get. You see, in the game, you're trying to get different awards, and in order to get the awards, you need different symbols. So for example, if I go ahead and construct this over here, but also this is a bad example, let's pretend I went ahead and constructed these cards over here. Once these are done, I'll have 3 of those cake symbols, at which point, because of this over here, I can go ahead and take the 3 cakes over here, which is going to be a bonus 10 points for being the first person to construct 3 cakes, where it will go over here on my player board. These ones over here are going to give you 5 extra points, but they also require specific ones, and you need 3 of that symbol. Alternatively, if you just had 2 over here, you can do any of these down here, and you get one of these awards from that side over there, possibly a coin as well. So you can also go ahead and get more of those cake symbols on the bottom of your track, and once you get 3 awards total, that will trigger endgame. Also worth noting, you can trade in any 2 symbols to be equal to 1, so you always have some degree of flexibility. As far as the moving along the track, when you build a recipe, you're going to put it down to one of the spots on your board, like I mentioned. They're going to give you different rewards from these various jars, which we haven't talked about, but jars are effectively operate like a free ingredient. Once you build this jar and you have it in your board, that's not the right spot, but either way, once you build that jar and you put it into your board, you'll get a discount of 1 cream or 1 whipped cream, whatever it is, on anything that requires a whipped cream. So if I went ahead and build this ingredient over here, it would only take 2 whipped cream. That discount over there will give me a discount of 1. You also get tools over here, coins over here, and the wild ingredient over here, which these wild ingredients are very flexible, both in terms of being able to put into these boards over here. They always are able to go anywhere, but also in being able to use them to build cards, which can be very helpful. You'll also have your chef, who gives you an ongoing ability depending on which side you chose at the beginning of the game, and there are 3 different chefs, and that's basically what you're trying to do in the game. So a bit of a quick recap. What you're doing on your turn is you're taking an action by moving your marker around the board. You're going to move your marker to any of these spots over here, taking either ingredients from a stack or a tool, ingredients from a stack, and advancing time, which helps you move your ingredients faster. It happens every single turn on its own, but it'll happen faster if you're doing this action, or taking from a sideboard, or going ahead and constructing up to 2 recipe cards from this grid over here, taking an extra coin if it's from these spots over here, but past that, trying to construct the recipe cards, taking the various points on them, trying to get the points on the recipe cards, the points for the awards, and the points for the possibly putting them in the top track over here as well, and trying to do that as efficiently as possible before triggering the end of the game and seeing who ultimately won. That's basically what's going on. We missed a few small details of things like reserving cards I didn't get into. I didn't talk about this little, if you run out of resources, how that works over there. A bunch of small things. Tool cards over here, just going through a smattering over here. These will give you different abilities you can execute. Take a wild ingredient, take 2 tokens from the sideboard. They'll give you different things you can do over there. You cannot use tool cards the turn you got them, but rather the next turn. So again, it's a bunch of side things we're not heavily getting into, but that effectively is Sweet Mess. On an action selection system, a degree of tableau building as you lower your ingredients cost across multiple ingredients, trying to take actions to gather ingredients and then trying to trade them in, being mindful of the limited pool of how you can grab ingredients. One thing I didn't really touch upon, but if you ever are in a situation where you don't take everything, let's pretend I had taken from this red pool earlier, but I only took these 2 because I could only afford to put them here, and I couldn't take that last one, then the bowl doesn't flip and empty ingredients. You only populate ingredients when you are emptying a bowl fully. And that is how you play Sweet Mess, which brings us to the review, starting off with ease of play. Overall, the rulebook on this one is fairly clear, fairly straightforward, nothing overly complicated. Some aspects of the game are not immediately intuitive, and some things you won't really get a feel for until you start playing. Like even just the way you collect ingredients, that will start making a lot more sense as you find yourself actually limited in how you collect ingredients. The general process of ingredients cycling along and giving those extra bonuses, the end game points for things, a bunch of things in the game are simple and easy to understand, but you kind of have to start playing to get a sense of how things will actually play out. Games run in at around the hour mark. It can vary a bit depending on player count, depending on how fast players are going, but in around an hour for the game. As far as what I like, don't like, and can see others not liking, starting off with what I like, which is the general tableau building game combined with the fun theme. You are going to get more powerful throughout the course of this game to a degree. That little system over here where you put these little candy jars over here, you trade in ingredients you have in order to get those, but it gives you an ongoing perk as well as a point at the end of the game. That will make gathering ingredient cards a little easier. At the beginning of the game, it's often very hard to actually build out 2 ingredients in a single turn, especially these high level ones over here, which give you more rewards, more symbols, but require more stuff, and building 2 in a turn just seems incredibly impossible. But once you get that tableau building up and running, once you have a handful of tool cards going on, there's a limit to how many you can have at any time, but once you have a few tool cards and a few of those jars giving you those discounts, it becomes significantly easier to go ahead and build what you need to power up for those turns, to take advantage of the timing of understanding where to slot ingredients for better rewards, for worse rewards, or for faster turnaround of when they will actually be ready and count towards those awards, because we didn't really talk about it heavily, but these awards go down in points. The first one in each one's worth 10, then 8, then 6, then 5, then 4, then 3. They go down in points as you're going through the game, so you want to be first to being the best pie maker, the best cake maker, the best... What's the last category? Cupcakes? Delicacies? I don't know. This is like, we got pies, cakes, and... the last ones, I guess it's, pastries? I don't know, pastries, pies, and cakes. Let's go with that as far as different categories. And so you're trying to build at your tableau, and again, it has a fun theme. It's fun to watch the chaos explode around the table as you populate ingredients to different areas throughout the course of the game, and the tool cards are incredibly satisfying. I really enjoy gathering some tool cards, being able to use those, combined with your chef's ability as well, which will give you another little degree of something extra you can do, and there's a lot of things you can use towards you in a fun theme, in a quick playing game, well, quick is relative, And there's also two small modular expansions, which I didn't really talk about, but there's little hands over here that will limit the way you can actually gather ingredients as they go across the board and have to be in specific areas. And you'll also have these goals over here, which if you accomplish the goals, you'll get the reward, and then go ahead and flip the next card over here, shift this over, and be able to continuously get new rewards by having certain achievements or goals in process. And so those small little modular expansions, I'd probably play with them. Usually they don't add additional complexity, they just add additional levels of things to be mindful of as you're playing. But overall, it's fast, it's easy to play, it's got tableau building, and it's got beautiful artwork and a great theme. As far as things I don't like about the game, first of all, it is a little chaotic with the mess system. The system over here in the game, which you have the mess populating around the board, does give you something to focus on as far as the limiting aspect of how you gather various tiles into your board. The gathering tiles is a little too easy in and of itself, but as soon as you start having things populate around from various zones, suddenly trying to figure out how and where you're going to fit that into the board, and is it even the right tile to take, or are you setting someone else up for getting something else better, that's a little bit of a... It gives you things to focus on as far as the collection of ingredients. It gives you a little bit of things to have to navigate around. But it ends up usually being easy enough to get various things you want, and you're just kind of like throwing things all across the table. The strategy aspect of, oh, I'm going to flip this, and that's going to go ahead, and then we're going to populate those ingredients there. The strategic aspect of how it plays out, I find, is not present so much as the doing what you need in the moment, and whatever happens kind of happens as you play through it. It's a system that works to give you things to seek, but it's a system that doesn't necessarily work as far as trying to think through the strategic impact of what you're doing because of the degree of chaos around it. So I didn't really find that mess concept rewarding, and it is the central concept of the game. I like a lot of things going on in the game. I like the trying to, gather various tokens, to work your way towards ingredients. A lot of things work, and a lot of things are mechanics that you'll see present in other games. The central thing that makes the game unique, the mess, I found charming without being strategically compelling, if that makes sense. As far as what I can see others not liking, first of all, the limitations around token collection in general. This little puzzle of how you get things into your board can be frustrating if you're not used to it. It can feel very limiting to try to figure out what you can get, because sometimes it seems like there's so many tokens available to grab, because the nature of flipping these buckets over is going to mean that you're going to be populating with a lot of ingredients, but you can't always take what you want anyway, so that can sometimes come across as frustrating. I'll also say there's lots of mental number jungling. In terms of getting the ingredients over here, you'll have players who are constantly trying to think through, well, if I have this and I have that, and I can go ahead and take that card, but then I need to get both those cards. Meanwhile, someone goes and buys that card, and you're like, oh, now I need to rethink it's on my turn. And yes, you have the capacity to reserve, but if you didn't take the reserve action, and you're just trying to think through based on what's on the board, there's often a lot of mental number juggling and trying to figure out what ingredients you do or don't have, what tools you can or can't do. And the problem is you're trying to do this while on others' turns so that when it comes to you, you can actually take your turn. But if you aren't able to do so fast enough, you'll be the one slowing down the game when it gets to your turn, and you're trying to do all that ingredient maneuvering in the game. It's not crazy, but there's enough mental juggling, especially because you can build up to two ingredients on a turn, two recipes on a turn, that can certainly slow things down if you aren't able to make that mental math work fast enough. Now, before I move to final thoughts, I do want to point out one thing I should have pointed out earlier, but these bowls over here have things on the other side showing you what's on the other side. We have chocolate on the other side of that, and we have candy on the other side of that. You'll see each of the designs over here do actually show you what's on the other side, which is a nice little touch that I think does lend itself to being a bit more control rather than having to check things on a regular, consistent basis. But with that, as far as final thoughts go, I think Sweet Mess is an overall very good, very enjoyable game, with the main caveat being that I find it falls into a weird space for me that I often refer to as Gateway Plus. It's a little bit too strategic and a little bit too nuanced and a little bit too many things going on that you do have to be mindful of, and there's lots of strategy as far as trying to make all the math work and get the right cards and get the right awards, so it's a lot going on that makes it a little bit outside the range of what is a general Gateway game. It's a little bit overly involved for someone who's looking for something on the lighter end of the scale. The flip side is the mess, the chaos, the theme, all those things do take it a step removed as well from being that medium or heavyweight strategy, putting it into a weird zone where I think that it is, and again, it's a zone that other games share as well, but it's a zone in which it's a little bit harder to table with my main strategy gamer group, and it's a little bit too much for playing it with family, with kids, and all of that. So it's just one that's a bit harder to table. I do like it. I do enjoy it. It does have a level of how much it caps out because it is on that lighter side for me, but overall it's a 3.5 out of 5. Good game, tableau building, great art, unique theme, lots of fun to just gather the ingredients and trade them in for the cards you need, but also capping out a bit to where it is for me. As far as other game recommendations recommendations. First of all, if you're looking for something similar that is a little bit more accessible, I'd say Splendor very much falls into the category. Splendor is going to have you gathering various tokens. It has that tableau building. It has you working your way towards the top, but with significantly less rules overhead along the way. And if you're looking for a step above that, that's probably in the middle of these two games, there's Century Golem Edition. Century Golem Edition, or Century Spice Road for that matter, will also have that degree of tableau building, also have that degree of working your way towards that end goal, towards your things you're trading in tokens for various points, but with a whole different way that it's actually handled, and again, also a little lighter on the rules. In any case, then until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.